Good morning, my name is Mark Laborde. I'm Director of National Accounts for Curry Supply.
My name is Pat Hanlon, I'm a National Account Manager.
And we want to thank you and welcome you to our rental hour here for Curry Supply Water Products, crash attenuators, and dump trucks. We're going to be walking you guys around each one of the trucks, talking a little bit about the overview, our standard specs, our options, and then we're going to say a little bit about how to rent these, qualifying customer questions, looking at some industry data that we know about, and then walking you through kind of why we rent these, why this is our standard spec. Pat?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, Mark and I do have a background in the rental industry. I think between two of us, we have a little over 20 years of experience in the rental industry. So we do know some of the questions that are asked, some of the spec requirements that are usually needed within the industry as well. We sort of also know how hard and abusive the rental industry is. The running joke usually was if you rented a rock to a client, somehow, some way, they're going to return that rock broken. So, uptime's a huge ordeal here at Curry Supply. We understand that you need that uptime for your clients as well. That's sort of why we're going to review the specs that we have and review why we do things to help increase and keep that uptime for you and your clients. Going to do an overview of the crash attenuator. This is a crash attenuator, a TMA, also known as a crash cushion. Mm-hmm. These are commonly found on infrastructure job sites, whereas if there's any type of road work being done, bridge work being done, this truck sits on the job site and is designed to take an impact up to 62.5 miles per hour. Due to the distracted driving that we're constantly seeing out in the world today, the purpose is job site safety. So this would sit on a job site just the way you see the truck now. This is how it's actually going to make you money on a job site, where the truck's deployed, the personnel or the work's going to be done in front of the truck, and this is just going to sit there and take an impact in case there's a distracted driver. The crash attenuator we do also here at Curry Supply, we are chassis agnostic, so it doesn't really matter what chassis we use or OEM. We work with the client and what their preferred brand is, whether it's dependent on a local dealership that they currently have a good relationship with and they want to keep that mm-hmm. relationship. We have no problem working with them. For today's demo, we're doing a Ford F750 diesel chassis. We do see these applications in gas options as well, which we'll get into here shortly.
And I think it's important to point out here, all three of the product lines that you're going to see today, this is 100% customer driven on feedback. So this is our 4th generation crash attenuator bed and setup. We're on our 7th generation water tank that we're going to go over here in a little bit, and we make modifications based on customer feedback. So everything that you see today, we're really high on simplicity of use, because like Pat said, if you rented a rock, they'd return it broken and then blame you for having rented them a broken rock. So we try to make it as simple as possible, not only from a rental standpoint, a maintenance and uptime standpoint, because when that piece of equipment comes back and it's broken, you can't just go out and rent it. You have to do your inspection. Ordering parts is always a timely issue as well to get that thing rent ready. So there's a lot of things that we implemented that you're going to see today that are really 100% rental specific, and we'll go through that as we go through our product line.
So the TMA serves a dual purpose out in the industry. One is it's designed, as we talked about, to be a crash cushion, an impact vehicle. The other option, or the other use of the truck, is for cone deployment. So if you notice that there's a 16-foot flatbed on this truck, and we do have man baskets on each side. Those man baskets are 36 inches in wide. We have them on the street side and the curb side, and those baskets are designed for personnel to stand inside the truck. If Mark wants to open the door here. So if someone's deploying cones, it's ultimately you want personnel protection. You don't want the traffic on the roadways driving by at high rates of speed. You want to keep your personnel safe. So what we do is we have a man basket on each side depending on how you're doing cone deployment, and the deployer would stand in here. They would be harnessed off as we have a D-ring right here, and this is where they're going to deploy cones. If they are doing cone deploying, you cannot use the attenuator as an impact vehicle. You can have the attenuator down, so you can use the aero board, which we'll show here in a second, but you would also have to have a pilot vehicle behind it for crash attenuator, for impact reasons. That's why we always recommend when these are purchased within the rental industry, they're usually purchased in pairs. I think Texas requires 2 attenuators at all times on a job site, so the purchasing of these trucks are usually done in pairs.
Yeah, and keep in mind, these are meant to be impacted. Again, this is a life-saving device. So it's at some point, we've all taken distracted driver and defensive driving classes in the rental industry. That's what this is for. That's for that distracted driver, and it's going to be impacted. So having that uptime, having the fleet that you need that is going to be able to satisfy that customer demand. Pat and I used to always talk when we were in the industry itself about brick walling our customer. And this is one of the first things on an infrastructure site to block that lane, to have roadside safety. You're going to see, your heavy yellow iron on those large job projects or road projects. But this is always one of the first pieces on site. And we think it's important that you keep that in mind. You don't want to let the competition specifically have this in their fleet, you not have it in their fleet, but you're getting all the other work. This is just the first, this is the 19-foot scissor of the industry to take market share away from your customer base. So we highly recommend and see the value in a crash attenuator within your rental fleet.
Yeah, and it's a very niche market. We will be honest with you, not all states enforce it, not all states enforce it,
Yep.
not all counties enforce it. So it's sort of, state by state is sort of how we see where these trucks fit. Not every state do we sell these to.
Correct.
We have states that don't enforce it at all, and there's no need for it. But we have other states, for instance, Texas. I believe Texas and New Jersey
Yep.
and New York
Yep.
are probably our three hottest states for these product lines. There was a report out, I believe a year ago, where the state of Texas has more road construction than they do TMAs built across the whole entire country. So there's that much work in Texas, and like I said, Texas, these always go out in multiples in Texas.
Yep.
So, and like I said, if you want to talk about a vehicle that is high ROI and low serviceability,
Yep.
this is your truck. Because like as we said, right now, this truck, the way it's sitting, is on a job site, is how you're making money. The truck's not moving, the truck's not running, you don't have an operator in the truck. If the truck doesn't start, 9 out of 10 times it can just be jumped. The service calls that we've seen in the industry is either a flat tire or someone left the battery on in the chassis.
Yep.
To be honest with you, your biggest hurdle with a crash attenuator in your fleet renting it is going to be pulling it off the job site for that inspection on the chassis, for that 1-year annual inspection.
Yep.
So very high ROI truck, it's not being something that's being used a lot. When I was in the industry as a territory rep, we had 8 of these that we rented to the same client every year. And they rented them for about 9 months every year. In the Northeast, the construction time is very short. So after the trucks came back from being on rent that long time, they came back with 120 miles on each truck. So trucks are being very used, very little. I mean, they're gaining rental rate anywhere from, would you say, $2,500
Yeah.
to $5,500, depending on where the trucks are at and the time of the year that it's going on. So very good, effective piece of equipment to be on a job site. And as Mark mentioned, first one usually on the job site, and in rental industry, the first one to get the piece of equipment on the job site is usually who's going to own that job site. And this is a perfect segue and opportunity to brick wall your customer when you get to that job site.
Yeah, and this will lead to other stuff because again, it's one of the first pieces on site. This will be your, if you're talking to an electrician who's doing all interior work, this is 100% your 19-foot scissor to go get the other add-ons. And we see really the truck segment. We've seen a lot of the majors, a lot of the nationals over the past, let's say dozen years, segment out their niche markets. They've got power gen, they've got trench and shoring, they've got tooling, power HVAC, and truck segment is the new and upcomer niche that we're seeing in the industry, bar none. The capex expenditures that a lot of people are putting into it, they kind of see that model being duplicated throughout the country, and we really feel that the truck segment is really the new niche market within the rental industry. I think another thing to really point out too is when Pat alluded to, we're chassis agnostic, we're also solutions providers. We really do pride ourselves on being a partner, not a vendor. You can find a vendor anywhere, just like, any of your customers can go rent a Bobcat skid steer cheaper than what your rental rate is. But we really value our partnership with our client base. So we're going to come with you with solutions, with options, whether you're asking for them or not, whether it's a chassis spec or an engine spec, which I want to talk about here briefly, or a body spec. We talked about the simplicity of the crash truck, of our product line. It's really user friendly. And one of those solutions that we provide is a cost analysis based on OEC, your original equipment cost. We do look at, gas versus diesel, one diesel manufacturer over another, the service support centers that they have nationally and regionally based on your geography that you cover for your rental market. So we're going to always look at those options and try to give you the best solution for your business. I know that when Pat was in the field, one of the things that we talked about, Pat, was how training is so important. You want to talk a little bit about that, especially with something niche like this?
Yeah, so we understand this is a very niche market. It's a crash attenuator. It does take some time. Not every state requires it. A lot of contractors are renting them, just maybe not from your major national players in the country, maybe more from like a safety company. So one thing I think Curry Supply also prides themselves in is the safety the training that we can provide, especially to a niche market. If this is something that's new coming into your rental fleet, I think, like anything, you talk about stuff or you feel comfortable talking about stuff that you're very knowledge based on. So we like to do as much training as possible, whether that's virtually, with your sales team, with your inside sales team, your service department, if the truck comes in, how do we help you with the service end of it, as well as if we need to come down when the trucks arrive to your facility and do some training, hands-on training of the facility. It's very crucial. We want to see this truck as successful as possible. We always say we want to be invested in your success.
Yep.
So if we can do any type of training on the truck itself for you and your team, that's where Curry Supply, I believe, separates itself from the other vendors out there. We don't want to be just that vendor. We want to be that true partner. And if we can do as much training and as much education on this product line to see it successful within your industry, to help you guys gain more market share, then it's a win-win for both of us. And I think that's something that we're definitely, we pride ourselves in. We like to do a lot of it. We've done a lot of it already. We like to follow up, ask up the questions after it's implemented a little bit. What questions are you getting asked? How are the specs going? How can we assist you with everything that's going on?
Yeah, what are you hearing from customers that are renting the equipment? What's their feedback, what they like, what they don't like? Because again, we are customer based. That's customer feedback is 100%. That's why this door is here. The old model used to have a stake side here, and what we found out was that the end user was having to remove the stake side, put it in the storage pockets, then get up in the vehicle and then deploy cones or stack cones, and then they had to remove the stake side. So we put a hard door in there. That's 100% customer feedback. The mezzanine grating is customer feedback. The tubular design here on the slide gate, that's customer feedback. It used to be a block or square tubing here. Square tubing has a tendency to pinch, where round tubing doesn't have near that tendency. So this is all driven on customer feedback. The bolts that are locked in, that lock the stake sides in, because you don't want to hear that rattling going down the road. It's just it locks them into place. It makes it easier. It's a better customer experience because they're not hearing that noise in the background. Let's take you back now and show you the real workings of the crash attenuator. You want to go over the aero board and just standard features?
Yep, so we've reviewed the 16-foot flatbed. Again, is you use this cone setting. This is the attenuator part. This is the part that actually gets impacted on the roadway. This can take an impact of up to 62.5 miles per hour. And to achieve that 62.5 mile per hour impact, the truck does have to weigh 20,000 pounds. So for us to achieve 20,000 pounds, we have to do a concrete ballast underneath the flatbed. It is concreted into the substructure underneath the flatbed, and then we bolt the flatbed to that substructure. We have a 25 light aero board on this truck. It has 12 different settings that can be all controlled inside the cab. We have an aero or a solar panel that actually charges a battery underneath the aero board to fully isolate the system. And the reason why we do that is because we did not want this tagged to the chassis itself. We sort of say, that out of sight, out of mind, where if this is sitting on a job site, it's usually parked, remember, away a little bit from where the work site's taking place. So if it's sitting there, this is behind it, all the work's being done, the lights are going to be on, it could possibly drain the battery of the chassis. So then you get up the next day to go to move it, the truck needs jump, or you're going to have a service call on the truck. So we isolate the whole system, and then we use a solar panel to constantly charge it, with the sunlight. The solar panel or the battery will run this unit overnight. So if you do a lot of road work at night or anything like that, that's not an issue. It can run over 10, 12 hours easily on that charge of battery.
Yep.
And we do a 25 light aero board Some other manufacturers of this product line do a 15. The reason why we do 25 is we do notice that these trucks sort of travel across state lines. Every state sort of does have a little bit of a different requirement. I believe New Jersey is probably one of the most strictest requirements.
Yes.
That do require a 25 light aero board. So we make 25 light aero board our standard feature on all of our crash attenuators. And by doing this, that just allows you to transport that truck across state lines in knowing that you meet or exceed all state regulations.
Yeah, we're very aware of the fluid fleet that 99% of the rental houses have, and we understand that you know this truck might be bought in New Jersey, but it might be in Carolina in 2 weeks, or it might be in California in another month. So we understand and realize that there are specific requirements, and what we did is it's a best in safety practices. So we took the highest standards in the industry and made it fluid so that you can transport this around the country with ease. There's a couple nuances with the rear chevron. The rear chevron on a standard build is black and yellow. Some states do require red and white. So that's an easy decal that if you're moving across, just let us know and we'd be more than happy to talk about that. This is going to wrap up the portion of our crash attenuator. We're going to move over to our water trucks and talk about those for a little bit. This is our standard 2K water truck that we have here. Again, we're chassis agnostic, but this is on a Ford gas engine.
For a second, let's talk about gas,
absolutely,
if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
If you notice, we have a gas here. We have a gas on our 3-yard that you're going to see here in a second. We do have gas on the crash attenuator, and I think it's important that we talk about gas versus diesel. As the market and the trends are constantly changing, you've noticed, you know, manual transmission was in the medium to heavy duty truck applications all the time. Everything was a manual transmission. Now we went to automatics. It seems like automatics, and then within the rental industry, I would say we sell 99.9% all automatics for the past 5 years, I would say. The new trend that we're seeing within the industry is a lot of rental companies are moving to a gas chassis option. And there's a couple of reasons why we're seeing it within the industry. One is your acquisition cost. We know how you purchase that truck in the OEC of that piece of equipment has a major impact on how you depreciate it, as well as the rental rates that you can get on it. By moving just to a gas chassis, you can save upwards of up to almost $8,000 just upfront costs. So when you're competing, say you're competing against another client that has a water truck, and your diesel and their gas, and they're maybe charging a lesser rental rate on that, you know, I would have your reps simply ask the question, is that diesel or gas? Because you're competing against two totally different trucks in a sense also, because a gas truck is a lot cheaper, which is allowing them to get a little bit lower and skinnier on those rental rates.
And to the end user, that's a good point, Pat. It's a lower cost, but that's probably a higher ROI for that rental company because they don't have the inflated cost of an $8,000 diesel engine. So there are applications where we do recommend diesel versus gas, but again, this is a solution. It's not saying that you have to go this way. We're simply trying to provide alternatives to the standard rental status quo, just like a lot of other verticals are doing. I know that a lot of the aero companies are challenging that status quo as well. So we're no different. We're trying to be, again, chassis agnostic, but a solutions provider, and it's up to you whether you want to take advantage of that solution that we provided.
And it's just a simple conversation with your client. We hear a lot, you know, my client would never take diesel or never take gas over diesel. And we hear it all the time. And you might have clients that will only accept diesel.
Yep.
But there is issues that come with diesel as well. With the new emissions requirements and new regen issues, we have seen a tremendous uptick in regen issues on the chassis. Multiple users where the one user says it needs a regen, it gets skipped. You can skip a regen 3 times. It gets skipped, the truck comes back into your rental fleet, it gets green tagged, goes back out, gets skipped again to that next client, comes back, and then that third client that's renting it sees it needs to be a regen, he skips it, well, it's going into a hard shutdown.
Yep.
So now that truck needs to get towed back to a facility, which who's going to pay that cost? How can you go back on your client and charge a work order on something like that when it's really he didn't know. He didn't do
Correct.
anything that was, different than the other guys. So that prevents a lot of the regen issues, and it also prevents a lot of those hard conversations having about a possible work order of a tow bill or a regen issue, because they're ranging anywhere from $1,800 to $2,500 on a manual regen.
Yeah, and it's hard to put that back on your shop techs too, because you can have regen as a checkpoint, but if it doesn't come up, they don't know how many times it's been skipped either. That same client could have had the truck for 6 months and skipped the regen twice, but it doesn't come up on the dash, or there's no indicator because it doesn't come up for regen again because they skipped it. So now you've got your shop tech being responsible for a regen issue that they had no idea was even there. So we want to just put that out there as a possibility and kind of set the stage for why we're doing what we're doing.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, let's get into the product itself. Again, this is our standard 2K tank. We do offer standard 2K and 4K. We do some customization with a 2,500, a 3,500, and a 4,500 gallon tank as well for certain clients. But by bar none, these are the two sizes in the industry. The things that we do a little bit differently than our competitors, on the tank itself specifically, we actually do sandblast versus a chemical wash. So the tank's going to have a lot better life cycle from a rust standpoint. We sandblast down to a 3 mil profile and then build our paint profile back up. We use PPG industrial paint, which has the best 1,000-hour salts tests in the industry. And then we do a 12 mil coating on the interior of the tank. Again, that's sandblasted as well. No chemical wash on any of our products. And really what that does at the end of the day, you're getting all of the impurities out of the metal, and it really does give us a better fit and finish at the end of the day. And we know that brand image is very important to everybody that's watching right now, and we want you to have that brand image, just not on the decal side where you've got your logo in the right spot and you've got the trucks the way you want them situated, but that the tank looks as well as the day you bought it with proper maintenance. Some of the other standard features that came from customer feedback is simple things like a little ball valve here. It's a 3/4 inch ball valve and an 1.5 inch ball valve. If you don't want to use the standard hose reel in the back, you can simply plug in this, open the line, and then you can wash a piece of equipment off if need be. We do have the Creek suction fill as well as a standard option, and hydrant option in the back.
Let me talk a little bit about the pump, Mark. We have a 4x3 pump here. We do a rope seal pump. It's sort of the pump I would say that you see the most in the rental industry. And the reason why we do that, again, multiple drivers, not as much maintenance going to be happening on these trucks. So we do a rope seal pump, and basically what that does is it uses the water that's in the pump to lubricate the pump itself. When that pump is getting lubricated by that water inside, the pump will actually drip on that rope seal, and at the bottom of the pump you will see a small drip. So we like to talk about that just because we have seen where there's been service calls on the pump thing that the pump's malfunctioning. It's the most universal pump that we can use. It has the least amount of maintenance on it, but that pump is designed to leak a little bit. And there is a way to tighten the pump, or there's bolts on the pump. However, we recommend you do not touch those bolts. In fact, if you notice, we have important warning labels. Do not over tighten the seal, that it will leak a little. Show signs of leaking as well as here. So we have 3 points to letting you know, do not tighten that pump where it could possibly detonate it. It is designed to leak. If you do have a job site or a client that is possibly very strict and they think that's contaminated oils or anything like that, we do have another pump option. It's a mechanical pump. However, there is higher maintenance on it. There, grease fittings daily. So again, more user friendly. We use a rope seal pump.
And again, if your company does decide to go to a mechanical pump, again, it's all about product knowledge and training, and that's your outside rep, your inside rep who's taking the phone call and getting that order for the rental. You need to make sure that, hey, it is a mechanical pump and there will be maintenance on it, just so that they know, because the conversation is going to come up when it does implode, that they're not going to want to pay for it because they weren't told about it. So again, we try to make it as simple as humanly possible.
And talking about simple, we come with it comes standard with 5 spray heads, 2 in the front, 1 on the side, 2 in the rear. If you if we can have a shot here right between the cab and the tank. We do pre-plumb it for curbside spray as well. It's already plumbed there. All you have to do is get the fittings, which you can get to any of the parts here at one of our 3 distribution locations across the U.S. And then we also pre-plumb it for a water cannon. And the water cannon is probably something that we've seen the biggest demand for lately. It's something that can be on it when you order the truck, or if you have a client request it after the sale, it is something that can be added after the fact. And the reason why I believe we see water cannons being added is it's basically an electric high-pressured wand, in a sense, that you can control inside the cab. So a lot of the job sites, you know, safety is paramount anymore. So that's allowing, we see that being used a lot for the operator to be sitting inside the cab, be able to control the water cannon, and is possibly washing equipment and is away from any moving pieces, say the excavator, the dozer, wherever it's possibly washing, the operator is standing inside. So just trying to help with job site safety, we do that as a standard feature, pre-plumbed. It can be added at the time of sale, or it can be added after the fact.
Yep, and you'll see water trucks on a myriad of different sites, locations. We do offer potable water for those locations that aren't close to a source of drinking water. If you do have a remote location and the customer's asking for drinking water or shower water, maybe if it's that remote, we do offer that as well. You're going to see water trucks for dust suppression for silica law. You're also going to see them for compaction on job sites. If there's a lot of compaction needed, you'll see them soak the area and then roll a grater or a roller over it. And then also for cleaning. So the front spray bar is primarily used for road cleaning. You know, you've got a site that you're working on and you're going onto a main highway or thoroughfare. You know, the debris from the equipment, the debris from the trucks in and out, whether it's, you know, a rental salesman, the GC, delivery trucks, whatever the case may be, you're going to have debris coming onto the road, and that front spray bar is specifically designed for that cleaning application.
Mark mentioned, you know, some of the features that we have on it and the uptimes that we want to do as well. All the parts that you see here are non-proprietary on the truck. These Vitalik clamps, you know, you can get at a hardware store. The ball valves you can get at a hardware store if you need to. Uptime is very paramount to Curry Supply as well as to our end users as well. So if you notice, you know, our fender trays, I think this is a very big talking point about our Curry Supply water trucks specifically. The fender tray, A1, is not welded to the tank. So this fender tray actually does not touch the tank, and any debris from the tires are not going to touch the tank. This is probably one of the most damaged items that we see on a water truck. And it's just simple getting backed into, someone hitting it, and you know, sometimes a safety officer or a job site might down the equipment because they feel it's a safety hazard. So what we do is we actually do a bolt-on application fender tray, I'm sorry. We want ease on and off. We have 4 bolts here. It can be shipped directly to the job site if it needs to be, or they can just bolt it on and go. Our competition has it all weld here on the tank, so you'd have to actually physically do welding on the tank to just repair a fender tray. If it's damaged a lot, we want it quick turnaround time. We don't want you to down the equipment. We don't want you to swap out the piece of equipment on a job site because you might not even have a piece. If it's in high utilization, you're not going to have an extra water truck over a fender tray. So anything that we feel gets damaged a lot is a full true bolt-on application.
Yeah, and you're also going to have, again, we're all about brand imaging, and we understand that the brand means a lot. You want the nicest, newest, cleanest equipment in the industry, and having that welded fender to the side, you know, if that does get damaged, the EHS guy does down it, then you're cutting, you're repainting, and also you got to recoat the interior of the tank because you're going to have coat delamination, and we just feel this is 100% a better solution. Come around to the rear of the truck, we're going to show you some, again, more standard features. We do have, here's our hydrant fill for the integrated, it's integrated right into our ladder. Again, less touch points, less welding on the tank. So we've got weld tabs, ring runners. We have the highway legal limit valve. I want to talk about that just for a second. You know, there's a lot of debate on whether to rate at 33,000 GVW or 26,000 GVW. If you do fully load an actual a true 2,000 gallon water tank with the laden weight of the chassis plus the weight of the water and the driver, you're going to to be over 33,000 GVW. That's not an issue if it is site bound and it doesn't leave the site. That's not an issue at all. You don't even need a plate on it technically for that application. You can tow it to it and deliver it. But for those that are going to be on the road, we do have, especially for the 26,000 GVW, we do have this highway legal valve. And what that does, as you're filling the tank, whether it's suction fill on the pump side or hydrant fill over here, you're going to open that valve, you're going to fill the tank. As the tank's filling, you're going to see water start to run out of here. When that starts to run out, shut off your supply, whether it's here or the other side. Once that drains fully, you're going to lock that valve into place, and now you're under 26,000 GVW. It's actually 1,358 gallons of capacity at that rate. Again, Pat talked about the air valves. We do have the standard duckbill spray heads, the air valves with the diaphragm. You can get options for that as well. We do have a Western style fan spray head on it. And then we have our standard hose reel that is retractable. Do you want to talk a little bit about stationary mode on the gas?
Yeah, so
okay, perfect.
Basically, when you're spraying with the hose back here, it will operate a little bit. However, if you want to have more pressure, these trucks can operate the PTO at 2,000 RPMs on a Ford chassis. On a diesel, other OEM, it's 1,600. So in order to get a little bit more pressure out of your hose here, your 1.5-inch hose, basically is you would turn the PTO to stationary mode. You have mobile and stationary mode. Mobile is if you're going to be driving the truck physically. Stationary mode is if the truck's going to be sitting and you're going to be using this hose here. So you'd switch it over to stationary mode, and then we have this switch here. And basically all that does, it's an override where it would engage the PTO and it would start to run at it would engage the PTO and it would bring the RPMs up to 2,000 RPMs. This is going to give you higher pressure volume right here. Again, that is only on our Ford chassis. On our diesel trucks, our Freightliners, Navistars, Peterbilts, Max, you would just use you'd increase the RPMs by using the cruise control. Some other features that I want to talk about in the back is our backup cameras. The crash attenuator that we didn't really talk much about on the backup camera, the water truck, our dump truck, and our flatbeds. We all do backup cameras just as a standard option for us. We've noticed that, again, job site safety, personnel safety is huge anymore, and we want to help promote that as much as possible. We do it as a standard feature. Not many companies do that, but here at Curry Supply, we do that as a standard feature. Another thing I want to talk about too is the ladder system. You're going to notice that some companies do not use a ladder system. Here at Curry Supply, we feel it's paramount to actually have a ladder system on your truck. A lot of job sites or even personnel or even the employees that work for your company need to do an inspection of the truck. You know, do a walk around, to do your green tag system, they need to probably inspect inside the tank to make sure that there's no large debris or anything like that. With this ladder rack system, this will help you maintain 3 points of contact at all times, going up and down the tank to inspect inside the tank. Some of our competitions don't even have a ladder system on it. So the question would be, how are you properly inspecting the tank when there's no ladder to get in there? Are they bringing a scissor lift over? Or are they using a ladder? I mean, I think ladders here in the next couple years are probably going to be outlawed by OSHA in some degree. So, I mean, we think that's very important. It's simple. However, I think it's very important not only for the person doing the inspection on the truck, but as well as yourself, so that there's no accident on coming back on a truck that you own. Yeah, but again, the simple things, the fill pipe, the hose reel, this from a customer standpoint, that's extremely simple for the end user. Whether it's a new driver, a guy that's driven a water truck for years, that's very simple for them to operate. And again, we're all about uptime and easeability of use for your end user who's running this equipment, as well as from a service standpoint. Again, that's why none of the products on here are proprietary. You can get this stuff really anywhere. One more thing as we're going to walk over to the dump truck, I'd just like to show you, as Mark mentioned, is the truck 26,000 or 33,000, what the truck's rated at. And if you look on the truck here, Curry Supply is a second stage upfitter, so we will provide the final second completion label on the truck. If you notice right here, it's going to be the third line down. I don't know if we can zoom in too much or not, but it's going to basically let you know what this truck is rated at. So this truck right here is rated at 25,999. So that is under CDL. That is the max weight you can haul. So if it isn't rated at 25,999, that's when that road legal valve is definitely going to come into play. And we have these completion labels on all trucks, whether it's a dump truck, water truck, crash attenuator. This will let you and your client know, A, is a CDL required, and B, what's the max load that can be hauled on that truck. Let's go ahead and move over to the dump truck. This is Curry Supply's 3-yard dump truck. This is more your landscaper bodies. These are, you know, your weekend warriors possibly.
Yep.
They come. Curry Supply currently has 3 standard options, but we can sort of build anything that would fit your needs. So the 3 standard options that we see in the rental industry are the 3-yard dump truck here. This is usually goes up to a 19.5 chassis, or the new chassis that are come out, which are 23.2, I believe. The other options we have would be our 6-yard dump trucks, and those are usually your 25.999 GVWs or your 33 GVWs, your single axle dumps. And then we offer a 13-yard dump truck as well. And that's usually your tandem axle dumps.
Right, and people say a dump truck is a dump truck is a dump truck. You know, there's a lot of commoditization of dump trucks in the industry, so water trucks as well. But there's definitely key differentiators. You saw the standards on our water truck. Pat already mentioned that the standard for our dump trucks is a backup camera. I really feel one of the things that really differentiates us from a serviceability standpoint for your techs and your end users, a lot of dump trucks in the industry are PTO driven. The only PTO driven one we have right now is our 13-yard dump as a standard. We do have the option on our 6-yard dump to run a PTO option, but it's not our standard. And I want to talk just a little bit about that. So on our 3-yard dump standard, we have a single electric motor that runs the hydraulic pumps. What that does is that's going to run your entire cylinder setup. The nice thing about that is you're not engaging anything on the chassis side. There's no hydraulics, there's no PTO from the chassis. So our 3 and our 6, if you have a hydraulic leak, it's 100% the 2 hoses that you see right here. There's no other option. There's nothing tying into the chassis. There's nothing running off the chassis. It's this hose here or this hose here. That's the only option. Just like most in the industry, we have a support both on our 3 and our 6, and then a dual support on our 13-yard dump. You're going to notice a little bit of difference in our 6-yard dump. You're going to see in those medium duties a dog box in the center of 99% of all the Mason dumps in the industry. We really wanted that easeability, again, use standpoint. We don't like that dog box in the center. One, it's a debris catch. I can't tell you how many times we've had a leaking cylinder and you take that 4-bolt cover off the dog box and it's absolutely packed with debris down through. So you're cleaning the debris and then you're finding out where the hydraulic leak is, mainly finding out where the wet dirt is. So we've really done a scissor hoist system like this. So our 6-yard dump is completely clean throughout the bed. Again, instead of having the PTO as a standard, our standard is a dual motor hydraulic system. So you're going to have 2 motors on that. The nice thing about the motors, it's a 30 to 45 minute swap out. It comes with a 3-year warranty on the motor itself. And the company that we're getting the motors from, I've had 4 motors in the past 6 years be replaced. It's extremely simple. It's hands-free for the most part from a serviceability standpoint and a ease of mechanic use.
And to talk about that, you know, and why we almost want to separate it from the chassis to the body is, fortunately, Curry Supply does have very good OEM partnerships where we work very well together. Whether if it's a Curry issue and it gets sent to the OEM to like say a dealership or vice versa, we do have a very good partnership. However, we're still trying to minimize as much downtime as possible. So the reason why we feel that this is one of the best in the industry is because if you do have an issue, like Mark said, if you do have an issue with the bed, it won't dump, there's a leak somewhere, it is 100% body related. It's automatically call Curry Supply. We have a warranty and service department right away. We can walk you through what parts need to be done, and we can get parts shipped out immediately to get this truck up and running. And that's preventing you from taking the truck to a dealership, scheduling a service on it for it to get in, them getting in there, and then saying, you know, oh, it's not a truck issue, it's an upfit issue. It's just helping minimize that downtime as much as possible. We see this very successful within the rental industry. We do hear some people have a concern about going hydraulic over PTO. And basically the concern is, well, it takes longer to dump the bed. And that is true. It does take a little bit longer. It's a simple button system. It's an up and down button. However, if the truck's not, when you're qualifying your customer, if the truck's not going into, we'll say, a quarry, or that truck's being used to literally haul dirt all day long, and usually your 3-yard and your 6-yard are not being used in those applications. I mean, I believe a duty cycle turn time on a high flow system, that we'll call it, is right around 40 seconds. On a PTO, you're right around, I want to say, 25 to 27 seconds. So there is a 10 plus seconds longer in a full cycle, but if this truck's only being dumped 2 or 3 times, you're not going to notice much of a difference in that.
Yeah, even if you're using that 6-yard dump for a landscaper's running it, it's not like they're running 45 loads a day of mulch. I mean, they're going to run 5-6 loads a day, and if that 10 seconds that adds up to a minute is that critical, we can absolutely get you into a PTO dump. That's not an issue.
And the biggest issue we see with PTO is just user error. It's someone getting in the truck, you know, being complacent, driving with the PTO on. That truck's driving down the road, say it's 30, 40 miles, or all day, and they left the PTO. That's going to wear and tear on your PTO. I'm not going to say it's going to ruin your PTO at that moment and spot, but with multiple drivers and multiple operators, you're going to have an issue with that PTO being left on all the time. Whereas with this system, you don't have to worry about it. When the bed is raised up like this, we have an indicator light inside the cab to let you know that that the bed is raised. So it's just in the rental industry, it just seems to be a more fit and finish, but we definitely do offer a PTO if that's what your business would demand.
Yeah, and some of the, again, you're going to see the standard options. Standard options on our 3 and our 6-yard are a manual tarp, or even our 13-yard is a manual tarp, but then you have the option to get an electric tarp. We can do 3-way barn doors, we can do triple coal chutes, we can do asphalt lip spreader. There's a lot of options on a dump truck that you can accommodate, but again, this is our standard rental spec. Our 6-yard and our 13-yard come standard with a center coal chute. Again, you can add more. We don't put an asphalt lip apron on any of the trucks as of today, but again, that's a simple bolt-on application on the 3-yard and a weld-on application for the 6 and the 13. This is just some of the things that we think help the rental industry, help your customers out from a simplicity standpoint, help your mechanics out, and honestly, it helps your reps out. These aren't complicated vehicles. We're more than happy to train at the drop of a hat. I know that I had a customer call me yesterday and asked to do a virtual demo, just like we're doing today. For their team specifically, and we're more than happy to do that. So if that's something to help your sales team be more educated, understand the contractors that they're going to be calling on, specific job sites, what to look for in Dodge and Peck reports if they're doing, you know, job site or construction or industrial work, Pat and I are more than versed to help you out. Again, that's how we both cut our teeth in the equipment industry, was rental, and I'm still very passionate about it. I know Pat is as well, and we just want to be that solution provider and partner.
And talking about that solution provider and partner, and I think this would be a good way to segue into some Q&A, but we also want to, you know, be from start to finish, we want to be that partner. So as you can see, we do have the decals on these trucks. We can provide any decal. Curry Supply does own a decal company, Curry Designs, that we can help decal, whether we produce the decals or you send us the decals, we can decal the entire truck to when it arrives, it is fully ready to go. If that includes job numbers, any type of DOT numbers, anything specifically, any type of safety, strobe lights, anything like that, we can do that completely at our facility. So when that truck gets picked up and gets delivered to you, it's not sitting along the fence waiting for your guys to do a green tag, waiting for them to put the decals on, waiting for them, to find time for it. When it arrives, it is ready to rent and get some ROI on the truck.
And that includes telematics too. We're fully licensed for all telematics companies as well. So if it's a plug and play or it's a hardwired, we're fully capable of doing that as well.
Absolutely.
So if you go and sign into the guest book, you can add a comment section to ask a question. We're here and ready to help you out with any questions you might have.
We have a question about the dump truck. Are there different options for the dump truck tailgates?
Yeah, so the question is, are there different options to dump truck tailgates? Yes, there are. You can do a 3-way or a barn door. I had a customer a couple years ago actually it's a triple coal chute on a 6-yard, but it's also a fold up or fold down. It'll dump, of course, and then it's actually dual hinged on the left side so that or the right side, so it swings around to the curb side and locks into place. So there's multiple options for a dump bed. It's really up to your specifications.
And on the dump bed as well, the tailgate options, I think, we can also help you if you have a snow plows or spreaders or anything like that.
Yep.
We can rig it so that the dump bed is set up to do a quick mount for your spreader. We can do, if there's a hydraulics or any type of power needed to the back of the truck, or if the tailgate needs to be designed to accommodate your spreader, we can definitely accommodate those needs as well.
Can you answer a little bit about the inventory, stock quotes? Do you have stock quotes on this, stock specs, etc.?
Yeah, so the question is, do we have stock inventory and stock quotes? We do have the standard specs on all the product lines that we displayed today and spoke about today. So our 2 and our 4, our 3, our 6, and our 13-yard dumps and our crash attenuators. We'd be more than happy to send out a quote and show you the specs as well, yes.
We have a question on the crash attenuator. The maximum impact that the crash attenuator can sustain.
So the question was, what's the max impact the crash attenuator can sustain? So at 20,000 pounds, the truck has to weigh it can take an impact of 62.5 miles per hour. And we talked about a little bit, it's MASH certified. So what does MASH mean, basically, in layman's term? Basically, it's MASH certified, and that's a Curry standard. That's basically the latest and greatest technology that currently Scorpion or Traffics offers. So it meets or exceeds all state regulations.
And to that point, if you want to see some of the videos online, you can go to YouTube and Google Traffics devices or Scorpion attenuators, and you can see a tractor trailer run into one at about 50 miles an hour. It's actually quite shocking, but the driver did live, and it's phenomenal.
And it will also barely move the vehicle.
Yeah.
Those vehicles are designed not really to move when they take an impact.
I just want to touch on our stocking locations and distribution.
Yeah, so the question was about our stocking locations. All 3 of our locations, we have our home offices in Curryville, Pennsylvania. We have our Deer Park or Houston location, then the brand new one is here in Phoenix, Arizona. Those stocking locations are also parts distribution centers as well. So when Pat talked earlier about that uptime, we have full inventory of our parts distribution at all 3 of one of those centers as well.
And that's why we like to be involved in any type of fleet planning that you're currently doing. If you're bringing in trucks, or that you're going to be buying some crash attenuators or water trucks, and you have a national footprint, and you need to know, some trucks need to go to this area, some trucks need to go to that area. We like to be a part of that program so we can help send chassis to one of our 3 upfitting locations to help cut down logistics for you. So that way, if it's going to the West Coast, we want to do the build in the West Coast to cut down freight costs as much as possible for you.
These are really all the questions we have received. If you want to give people another minute to submit anything.
All right, that's all the questions we have. Again, we're still here. We appreciate the time that you guys invested in coming to see this live product demonstration. If there aren't any other questions, I think we'll wrap the live event. But again, thank you for your time. Thank you for the opportunity for Pat and I to talk about rental, which we love. And we'll be at ARA this year, so we highly encourage you to come see these products live in person. Would be fantastic.